be on my agenda day one is to reverse this decision, put in reasonable rules and regulations so that people can show up, voice their opinions, even when their opinions as a mayor, if I'm chosen to be mayor, that I might not like. But you'll get your 2 minutes.
All right, thank you. Was there anything that he said that you'd like to address?
Well, I'd like to address it and go back to one thing that I said, and that is that since I've been mayor, we have only stopped one person. And this is also the person who was the author of a post that said, if you have any problem with the village, come tonight and state your problem. So this is a case of we saw this, we headed it off, and the fact that the village would not solve your problem, or the village government would not solve your problem, you elect these trustees, you know who they are. They're people you've elected, they're people who want to help you, they're people who are there to serve. So that's ludicrous that we would not be interested in solving anyone's issue. Not their personal problems, their issues.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mr. Green, would you like to address that?
I mean, the mayor just said it himself. How dare I invite other people to bring up their issues to public meetings, to show up to a public meeting. I mean, the public meeting should be so busy that we're in this room. We should have that much engagement in our community. And likewise, people can come up and praise the community. We have amazing things that happen here, amazing employees. So those are great opportunities as well. And I was stopped. I then went through this policy to try again to speak. And I was denied that option again. And my issue was with a procedural process within the police department, not just an individual. So it was a village issue. And none of you could be at that meeting and hear that because the mayor and the board denied that. That's an issue. And that should weigh heavy on everybody's mind. We should be able to address our public employees.
Okay, thank you. Let's just continue on these hot topics. Again, these questions were from the public and from Andrew, and I believe the next topic is Andrew, eminent domain. Is it okay? You just put the initials, so I wasn't sure. I'm just reading. Next issue is the municipal parking lot eminent domain action. Was this the appropriate use of eminent domain powers? Why or why not? Mr. Green, you go first on this one.
I go first on this one?
Correct.
So just for clarity, because I know there's a lot of confusion. One, I was not in favor of those sheds being put up in that parking lot. Not at all. I had advised Mr. Otero, he had hired me to do some public relations for him, so that way people can become aware of the fullness of the situation, not just perspectives of one side or the other. And I advised him that a great opportunity to sit down with the board, work out a solution, get rid of those sheds, and actually, if he did it properly, he could have looked like a hero in one way of stepping up and doing the right thing for the community. And I encourage that. So I think the board handled it really wrong. One, I think eminent domain should be a last resort for a very, very important issue that's detrimental to the community without it happening. I don't think it's detrimental to our community. Community is going on right now and people are parking other places. Is it convenient? Absolutely not. Could that parking lot be beneficial for everyone? Absolutely. But not only is pursuing that, I believe, an overstep. We've also spent, to be honest, we don't know exactly how much money because the board and village won't be transparent with how much money's been spent with lawyers to this point. But we do know there's $30,000 in notations, and when I called the law firm and just said, hey, I'm from Wellsville, New York, I have these 3 itemized billing items, can you tell me what those are from? The billing guy said eminent domain. So right there's 30 grand. If they win the case in court, I believe they still have to pay the real estate value, which is appraised at the moment, $29,000, $30,000, could be appraised more by the judge. I think it was handled really wrong. I think egos got in the way rather than sitting down and working out a reasonable situation. I think that'll wrap that up.
regarding the municipal parking lot. If anyone's not familiar with this, you can Google this. And the Sun had a lot of stories on this, so I apologize, but I think it would take about 15 minutes to explain the whole history of it. So we're just going to assume no. So go ahead, Mayor, you're.
Well, the real issue here is that we need, in Wellsville, we need a vibrant downtown. That's the real issue. And critical and necessary to that is parking. For years, the municipal parking lot was plowed, was paved, was striped, was cared for by the village. And it became part of the municipal parking lot. What happened was the building changed, the Rockwell's building. The building changed hands, and the new owner recently moving to, or who recently at that time had moved to Wellsville, was not, the deal was off. That was not going to be the way that he wanted it. Originally, he offered it for rent only, and then finally for sale, and with a sale price that was take it or leave it. And the sale price that he offered was just short of 4 times the appraised value. At that point in time, and it was take it or leave it, he made that very plain. So there was no question that if we're going to protect the monies of the citizens of Wellsville, that we have to do this the best way that we possibly can. We began the eminent domain process. Mr. Otero hired Mr. Green to do PR. As he indicated, there was a hearing. The board, after the hearing and after all the information was gathered, the board voted 5-0 to have the eminent domain continue and to go forward with eminent domain, and that's what took place.
All right, thank you very much. Would you like a minute to address that?
Yes, please. According to the Wellsville Sun's reporting, and something the mayor's leaving out, the village decided to stop paying the monthly rent. Mr. Otero was willing to keep renting it monthly. The village had a 4 or 5 month set up rent for the holiday season that ran to, I believe, February, maybe late January. And Mr. Otero had offered it to keep renting, and the village denied that. Mr. Otero, from what I understand, was willing to go to the table more. The village said, from what I understand, I believe the report reporting that the appraised value was all they could pay for it, not a penny more, legally possibly. They were bound. So, I feel it could have been handled much better. I think egos got in the way on both sides, and that created something that is now a money suck for the village, wasting taxpayers' money. We absolutely have a parking problem. There needs to be solutions. There were other parking lots as well at that time empty. We weren't eminent domaining those parking lots. And at the end of the day, what happens when they come for your property?
All right, thank you. Mayor, you have a minute to address that.
This is probably as appropriate a time as any because you referenced your call to Hodgson Ross. I've been made aware by 2 separate attorneys, unrelated, who have confirmed with 2 Hodgson Ross partners that when you called, you misrepresented yourself, that you indicated that you worked for the village of Wellsville, and that by telling them you worked for the village of Wellsville, you were able to convince them to give you attorney-client privileged information. And that is, as we talk about accountability, integrity, etc., that's a lie. You called them and lied. And that's, if you would lie to the guys from Hodgson Ross, why wouldn't you lie to all these people, and to me, and to John Andrews?
Thank you, that's your minute.
John, I need to
Marshall, I will say this.
address that.
He went over 45 seconds on his opening statement. I'm going to give you an extra 45 seconds.
I need 15
At
seconds.
your closing. All right, well,
I need to address that directly. That was an
Well,
accusation of
so-
my personal
so-
character. I just want to address the fact. That's the
Well,
fact.
there's more coming.
One second.
There's more.
I mean, come on.
More character accusations coming.
I will agree, I don't want that accusation swept under the rug. I don't think any of us would want to just move on from that. I will give you 15 seconds to address that.
To be very clear, I talked to a bookkeeper, never a lawyer. I simply said, I'm from the village of Wellsville. I have these itemized receipts, which I got from the village of Wellsville. And I just would like to know what they are from because the village of Wellsville did not know.
All right, and
End of story.
you stand behind your statements.
Without question.
All right, so let's move on to the next question. Thank you, both of you, for handling that as well as you could. The next topic, and again, this came from some community members, even some questions I had today from a business owner. This regards housing blight and enforcement. It's a two-part question. Mayor Shayler, you'll be going first. How does Wellsville provide the housing necessary for economic growth? And the housing inventory is rotting. There's a lot of blight in a lot of neighborhoods. How does the village accelerate removing blight and replacing it with new housing?
We are looking forward, the county has commissioned or is in the process of commissioning a complete housing study. We have asked the county for information and they're not able to, it's not in a format to give it to us at this point, but once the study is complete, they will. We need to understand exactly how many units, what's the inventory here, and what's it used for? How much of the inventory is rent-adjusted or income-based housing? How much is market-level housing? How many multi-unit, although zoning tells us that, the truth is that there are multiple families living in single-family homes or multiple individuals. How much of that goes on? This housing study will tell us that. Once we know that, then we can make a push toward trying to encourage developers to come in and do whatever it is we're looking for. Mr. Green alluded that he owns 3 properties on Main Street. One of the things that is critical to our growth as a village is to get apartments in those buildings on Main Street. Get upper level apartments because they tend to be higher income and those folks tend to shop local. They go local to the entertainment establishments. Those are the people that we want to attract. Those typically are the younger professionals, again, people we want to attract. So we need to get a good understanding of exactly how much we need. And then we have something too, and we're going to touch on this base, but we've got the New York Forward money. And there is a substantial amount of the New York Forward money that's going to be locally controlled.
And then if you want to pick that up on your next, hit the 2-minute mark. I'm going to read the question again. So it's about housing blight and enforcement. How does Wellsville provide the housing necessary for economic growth? The housing inventory is rotting in many neighborhoods. How does the village accelerate removing blight and replacing it with new housing?
Yeah, so to touch on what Randy was talking about, actually one of my buildings came with an apartment finished. The other building, I finished 2 apartments and we have online now. The building with the 1 apartment has room to build 4 more apartments, and a lot of people might not know, but Accord is now going for I believe a state grant that was just put out for affordable housing that allows landlords with small apartment buildings of, I believe, 5 or less apartments to have up to $50,000 to $75,000 per apartment to bring them online and make them active. So I'm one of those landlords that is currently seeking that grant as well, and we'll hope in the next year or 2 to have at least 5 more apartments up online within our buildings. The blight and the housing issues nationwide. I mean, everyone knows that. It's tough because building a new house is economically unaffordable for most people right now. The housing blight issue, really I see that as 2 stages. One would be condemned homes, and I think we need to use whatever legal powers we have to ensure that the owners of that property are removing those homes, at least opening those lots up, getting them for sale, getting them in the hands of people who will build on them or grow their housing lots. And then the other is yard blight. That seems to be an issue in a lot of neighborhoods of refrigerators, old ovens, appliances, cars, things that aren't operational being left outside in people's yards, trash, garbage, rubbish. And I think really there's two things there. One, we need to see why. Are these elderly people or people who have